Lara Croft is an iconic character. She's been a pop culture icon ever since her first appearance on the PS1. While her core games suffered from a lack of quality consistency, Tomb Raider as a brand continued to boom with movies and merchandise. Yet, while all this came and went, the Tomb Raider games themselves still weren't that great. The series was in dire need of a AAA reboot, and with the release of Crystal Dynamics' 2013 release of the simply titled Tomb Raider, the game not only acts as a reboot for the franchise, but also an untold origin story. Somehow on every single level, Tomb Raider not only works, but it thrives and becomes one of the best action-adventure games of the last 5 years, that once again remakes Lara Croft into a character that's actually not only interesting, but a strong protagonist. The weird thing about rebooting Tomb Raider into a world that's grounded in reality, just like this game tries to do, is that the source material of the original PS1 games were filled to the brim with the mystical and extremely unrealistic ideas. For God's sakes, some of Lara Croft's most formidable foes were dinosaurs and jaguars. The original games never even considered to put the series into a realistic place. So that's why the new Tomb Raider is so surprising. It starts in such a sound and real place. Lara Croft is part of a group going on an expedition, and when their ship crashes, it leaves them in a place full of danger and mystery. While that acts as a gateway for Lara to evolve from an archaeologist into a survivor, which is one of the best parts of the game by the way, it also provides a great and interesting way for the game to delve into the mystical side of things that made the original series so popular while continuing to stay in a grounded, real world. Part of making the game grounded is the idea that Lara isn't a killer, or even really a true adventure nut. She's mostly thought in a very safe way and rarely strays from the beaten path. The game does a great job of slowly introducing Lara into the idea of taking a life to survive, and in turn, introduces the player into the harsh world around her through the eyes of a normal human being. So many action games star buff and crazy people that have no qualms about snapping a dude's neck or shooting a person in the face, so it's refreshing to play as a person who actually starts to uncontrollably sob and scream when they take a life for the first time. You know, like a normal human person would. The entire game has a slant on her evolution, focusing on her slowly being introduced to weapons starting with a bow and arrow, and eventually leading up to an assault rifle. While there does come a point where she becomes as ruthless as Nathan Drake, she has a severe human element to her fighting and attacking that makes her just a more relatable character. Even when she's sneaking up on a person to take them out, her stealth attacks come from a place of her just being less experienced than them, and her having to use all her energy just to take out one dude. The entire story revolves around the group of people that are stranded on this island trying to find a way back home, but eventually the game delves into something much more ancient and mystical than the trailers and promos allude to. Slowly but surely the story starts to add hints of things that culminate in a finale. While I can see why it's polarizing, to me at least, it was extremely satisfying and perfect for the game and what it was trying to achieve. I think another reason why the game was so great at transitioning into more and more of a magical tone was because at the core of the game, the characters were so strong. Other than Lara being an absolutely amazing and complex character, and also being one of the best female characters in the modern gaming landscape.
Please. Just kill me now.
Go to hell.
Others like Lara's best friend Sam and Lara's mentor Conrad are all extremely deep and complicated characters who really sell all the crazy events that are happening around them. Lara has a major bond with all of these people, yet my small complaint about the game that becomes more and more obvious the longer I played was how the game until about the ending recycles the same conflict. Lara is constantly being separated from her friends, or a member of the crew is lost and she has to find them. And while she goes to find them, she runs into some trouble and has to off a few creepy dudes. That cycle just continues every few hours and adds an artificial link to the game. If the game had none of that fluff and focused a bit more on the core conflicts instead of a bunch of catch and retrieve missions for characters that don't really matter that much, I feel like the tone would have been a bit more focused. But the good thing about missions is that because of them, you're able to explore the island and really delve into the fun and satisfying gameplay. The gameplay mirrors that of Naughty Dog's Uncharted, focusing less on the mechanics of gunplay, but more on shooting and moving around. The very smart AI does everything in their ability to get you out of your comfy cover and out in the open, which adds a level of think-on-the-fly strategy and adaptivity. AI throws Molotovs, shoots flaming arrows, and logs frags, all in the name of keeping you moving. The game also almost plays as a Metroidvania game, in the way that you're set in the semi-open world that brings you back and forth to the same and similar locations, giving you different weapons and tools to advance and explore more of the island. While shooting isn't too interesting or special, it serves as a great way to create tense and challenging fights with just regular goons, which isn't a thing that happens too often in action-adventure games. There's also a really cool upgrade system that banks on you exploring the environment and scavenging the people and land around you to make your weapons better. Without these upgrades, the game becomes gruelingly hard, so the fact that the game forces you to look around and search a bit is a fun additive. The world of Tomb Raider is a lush and vibrant island filled with icy mountaintops, massive forests, and enough animals in danger to spook even the hardest of criminals. Climbing the side of a mountain and jumping from location to location really gives you a sense that you're not the most powerful person there. A common theme of the game is that Laura is up against odds that are almost impossible ever to even think about, toppling, yet she's still going, and the entire landscape and world adds to that. The island looks fantastic and is emphasized through the amazing camera angles and forced perspective that the game uses during key moments of the story that again highlight just how massive the objective is and yet how small in comparison Laura is. The game is called Tomb Raider after all, and that tomb part of the Tomb Raider title is somewhat ignored, but at a good cost. A lot of the game is shooting, exploring, and environmental puzzles which break up the combat and offer something that actually deserves some thought, and a few of the tombs in the game have such puzzles. While there are some tombs and some funny nods towards her future as a delver of tombs, the game doesn't make it a key focus, but instead focuses on her going through the experiences that will in turn make her the Lara Croft that we know in the original PS1 games. The game does have a large slant on collecting archaeological pieces by spreading a bunch of treasure and collectibles across the game that have little descriptions about what they are. While not mind-blowing, they add some form of collectible and replayability to the game that it might not have otherwise. The more controversial feature that the game has is the QuickTime events. It's the way in which you fight an enemy and you have to press the button at the right time in order to kill an enemy or stealth kill him or beat him up. While I'm not a massive fan of QuickTime events in general, Tomb Raider does it in a very good way that makes it jive with the tone of the video game more than most games do. The QuickTime events don't really help the game in any way, but it doesn't really hurt the game. It's fine for what it is, and it does its job really well. Tomb Raider deals with the what-if situation of putting a British girl with not much real-world fighting or survival techniques on an island with the goal of surviving. What would happen? That idea is so universal and compelling that it drew me to tears at parts, because somehow a game that deals with the magic and mysticism is such a real tale. The game has massive set pieces, fun action, and a great cast of characters woven with a repetitive yet ultimately fulfilling tale about a person just trying to get by and do what's right. Nothing is pretty and perfect in Tomb Raider. People have flaws, good things don't always happen to good people, and loss is crippling. Yet just like in real life, if you get punched in the gut, you have to keep on going. And that's how you become a survivor. Tomb Raider tells that story in a bittersweet way that left me wanting more. I give Tomb Raider a 9.0 out of 10. For my full written review, you can go over to rodformer.tumblr.com to read it all. Thank you, and have a good day.